behalf of all of us, we would like to welcome you and thank you for coming to the presidential debate. We have 3 outstanding, incredibly qualified tickets here, and they're going to show you what they got.
My mic on? Ooh, there we go. I'm here. Hello, everyone. My name is Olivia Schreiber. I am the chair of the Honor Board. I am also a member of the Election Committee, and I'm also co-moderating with Parker tonight, so you're in for a treat. Before we get into all the shenanigans for the evening, I do want to kind of start on a serious note. As I'm sure you are all aware, we received an email from President Favardin. And yesterday, there was an attack in Lower Manhattan, and unfortunately, we lost one of our graduate students. Darren Drake was an information systems graduate student. So at this time, I would like to have just a very brief moment of silence. I think this is, we're all here together, and I think it would be a really nice way to start the evening. So with that, I just ask for a few moments of your time. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, so now let's get into it. The debate tonight, I want to go over some of the rules for the evening. This is my second time at this game, so hopefully it will go very well. I cannot imagine it going otherwise. So we've already determined the speaking order. So they are sitting in the order in which they're going to first answer the questions. So we have Dakota and Mariana, we have Jose and Melanie, and we have Lucas and Rami. They're sitting on the way over there. So each ticket will be posed a question. And these questions have come from the Senate. They've come from my own mind, the crazier ones, of course. But we'll be asking them in a particular order, and each ticket will have up to 2 minutes to respond. They will be getting time cues from the lovely Sundus sitting in the front, after which the other 2 tickets will have a chance to respond to the same question, and then we will open it up to a rebuttal period. Each ticket will then also have an additional 2 minutes to rebut or refute anything that was said by the other parties. So just to give them more of a chance to explain their side and their platform. After around 50 minutes or so, we're then going to transition into audience questions. So I hope you all came with a list of questions for our lovely candidates because we want to hear from you. That's the whole point of these things. And we'll go on and we'll talk a little bit more about the rules once we get there. So sit tight, enjoy, and I have one more thing to mention. So I'm all for applause. I'm all for signage, which I think I already saw already. However, if I hear any negative comments or derogatory statements made towards any of these platforms or individuals, I will personally come over and grab you by the ear out of the room. So take that as it may. We do want to respect our candidates. It takes a lot of energy and effort to put this on by all parties involved. So we just want to give them all the respect that they deserve. That's all I ask. Pretty simple, right? I hope so. No one said yes. Please say yes. Thank you. Okay, awesome. All right, so I think we are all set to go. And let's begin with introductions. All right, so I got to write a couple of these, which is really fun. So I'll begin. There is only one person on campus who might have more hair than me, and it's Dakota Van Dersen, who comes from the true KC, Missouri, and is now pursuing chemical engineering with a biochemical engineering degree. He's a 3 out of 4 or 5. It truly depends on which office you ask. And he's been #raising hell on Mariana's Academic and Curriculum Advancement Committee. As a senator, he's also a part of the Budgeting Committee and a member of the President's Council. But wait, there is more. Dakota is also the president of Stevens Torch Alliance, a safe zone facilitator, treasurer of Society of Women Engineers, initiate in OXE, the Chemical Engineering Honor Society, an undergrad research technician in the Drug Discovery Lab, an orientation leader, a member of the Undergrad Student Advisory Board, and a Pinnacle Scholar. Let's give it up for Dakota. And his lovely running mate, Miss Mariana Fleming, hails from Middletown, New Jersey, and is currently a 4 out of 5 civil engineering student, also pursuing a minor in computer engineering. Mariana clearly has a lot of room in her schedule in between serving as a senator and the Academic Curriculum Advancement Committee head within the SGA, acting as the prez of both her sorority Phi Sigma Sigma and Take Back the Night, researching alongside a graduate student at Davidson Lab, and contributing to the Academic Campus Traditions Committee. She is also a member of Gear and Triangle, is an emerging and advancing Leeds graduate, serves as an ASC peer mentor, and is a retiree of the Stevens Co-op program. Let's give it up for Mariana. And I asked each party to give a little spiel about what they really are looking to do if they are elected to these positions, and they both wrote, "Our platform is based upon elevating every student's experience at Stevens by doubling down on student SGA interactions, working closely with Stevens media organizations to ensure everyone knows how to best to take advantage of their time here, and coordinating with staples such as the co-op program to be more of a student-centric university." Let's give them one more final hand of applause. And I'm going to throw it over to Parker.
All right. Our next super qualified, super amazing presidential candidate is Ms. Melanie Caba. She comes from Garnerville, New York, and now, as a 3 out of 4 biomedical engineering student, she's ready to take on the role of SGA and student body president. She is heavily involved on campus, namely as an SGA senator, as a peer mentor, a peer tutor, a research assistant under Dr. Carrie Perlman, a sister of Sigma Delta Tau sorority, and a member of Alpha Phi Omega service fraternity. Ms. Caba also is a member of the 2016 Stevens Global Service Initiative, Project Jamaica cohort, where she served in several communities, all while learning about the importance of global citizenship. Let's give her a hand. All right, now Jose, her running partner. He is a 4 out of 5 electrical engineering student coming from the city of Dover, New Jersey. He also keeps himself pretty occupied throughout the week. You'll find him decked out in his LUL letters, serving as the current president, but wait, that's not all. He's the Professional Society's subcommittee head, member of the Student Faculty Alliance, a member of Gear and Triangle, Chi Alpha Epsilon Honor Society, and Order of Omega Honor Societies, and a dedicated member of the Society of Hispanic Engineers, Professional Engineers. Wow, these are a lot of run-on sentences, geez.
Sorry, I did my best.
Okay, so together, he and Melanie are aiming to make Stevens a healthier and more inclusive environment by working alongside all students. Let's give them a hand.
Alrighty, our last ticket, we'll start with Mr. Lucas Gallo. He came to Stevens from Clark, New Jersey to pursue engineering management with a concentration in financial engineering. Now, as a 3 out of 4 plus 1, he is ready to take on the SGA presidency. He is a second-year RA, a brother of APO, and the social chair of Kappa Sigma, the vice president of the American Society of Engineering Management, and has been a member of the SGA for over 2 years. During his time on the SGA, he has served as a service subcommittee representative, served on the budgeting committee, and is now the current head of the PR committee. Oh, I forgot to mention one thing, maybe a couple things. He is in Gear and Triangle, Order of Omega, the RA Honor Society Rho Alpha Sigma. He has a show on WCPR. He is an I&E scholar, had a previous internship in Brazil, enjoys long walks on the beach, and, fun fact, he was the chair for a campaign for the Eliminate Project in high school that raised $150,000 and eliminated neonatal tetanus in India. What? Give it up for Lucas. And finally, Rami Kamor, his running mate. You might know Rami Kamor as, I just said that, of course you know that now. But did you know that he is currently the longest serving member of the Senate? Well, now you do. He is a 4 out of 5 civil engineering student who has served on the SGA Oversight, Budget, and Constitution and Bylaws committees since joining the SGA in the spring of 2015. He might be the ultimate committee man, but he also remains involved on campus as a teaching assistant, brother of Alpha Sigma Phi, Anime Club, CPAC, C2GS, Gear and Triangle Honor Society, and my personal favorite, the Stute. When asked about their vision for Stevens, Lucas and Rami want to make sure that students leave Stevens feeling connected to their alma mater by ensuring that we are at the center of decisions made by the university. Let's give it up for Rami and Lucas. All righty, ready to go? All right, folks, now let the games begin.
All right. With our first question directed towards the presidential candidates, in your opinion, what is the most important thing to address? And if elected, how do you plan to combat this issue?
We're We're starting with Dakota.
Okay. So it's been made pretty clear, I think, on all of my spamming of Facebook and all of Mariana's spamming of Instagram, which I don't have, so I'm very sorry I'm out of the loop. But we have really three main goals, namely that we are trying to work with the co-op office, as you said, and sort of make it a better, more cohesive unit for all students, work with media organizations, and also elevate SGA student relations by revamping, reutilizing, repurposing the PR committee that is inside the SGA. Personally, for me, one thing that I feel most tied to in our platform is working with the media organizations on campus, because I feel like they are an absolutely essential source of knowledge and source of wisdom on this campus that goes remarkably untapped sometimes, I feel. And I think that sort of fostering a bond with these media organizations can really help Stevens students learn more about not only what they can do to become more involved at Stevens, but also what we as an SGA, what we as a Senate, and ultimately, depending on the outcome of this next week, what we as a cabinet will be able to do for those students as well. So that is what I believe is most important.
So, how close? Okay, sorry. Jose and I would first like to thank you all for being here tonight. We really appreciate your time and coming out and sharing this experience with us. In terms of addressing what we feel is the most important thing on campus is really to help students understand the question, what is the SGA and who is the SGA? The SGA is every member of the undergraduate student population. Without you all, we can't do the work that you want us to do. That is something that we want to work on, a relationship between the SGA and the students, and making sure that students know who to come to and how to relate and understand that it's not a leadership hierarchy, it's a community where we all work together and all strive to make better changes for everyone.
Thank you. And Lucas?
All right. First of all, thank you all for coming here tonight. It's nice to see a lot of friendly faces in the crowd. Talking about the biggest problems here at Stevens, I think it's the students and their connection to the university. We think that we want Stevens students to leave here feeling connected to their alma mater, and we have a lot of ideas and ways to improve that. One thing is being able to look at the administration and see that there's a disconnect between the student body and the administration. We want to bridge that gap. One way to combat this is possibly by having mandatory technology training sessions for all the faculty, so that when they're teaching a class, they're able to actually know how to use projectors and things like that. We want them to be able to all use Canvas and make that mandatory when they're coming here for Stevens. Another way that we want Stevens students to feel connected to the university is that possibly in senior design projects, that they're actually planning and designing different parts of the buildings that are going to be built here at Stevens, so that when they come back, they could be like, hey, I helped build part of this building. Another way that we want Stevens students to feel connected to this community is to showcase a lot of the student projects that are done here at Stevens. We have some amazing people that go here, like the visual arts and technology students are not showcased. Honestly, they have one hall in Morton that shows their art. I want that to be throughout campus. They put on some amazing architecture. They have some awesome different projects that they work on in their classes. That should be around Pierce. That should be in our classrooms. That shouldn't just be siloed to one hallway in a building. Another way that we want to have students feel connected to the university is by leveraging the relationships that Rami and I have with the administration. We have been in the SGA for a long time, but we think that that's useful because we want to make sure that Stevens students' opinions are at the heart of every decision that is being made by this university.
All right, thank you very much. So now I'm going to open it up for rebuttal. Folks, you have up to 2 minutes to respond to any of the candidates or to further your point. I will open it now at that time. Just raise your hand for whomever would like to go first.
I have a logistical question.
Sure.
Is this open to anyone, or is this
Yes.
open to, again, just
For
the president?
presidents only, the presidential candidates only, yes.
Gotcha.
We didn't do opening statements.
No, we did not. Alrighty. Well, let's answer this question, and then we can bounce back to opening statements, and then we'll bounce right back into questions. How's that? Sound good?
Sounds good.
Alrighty. Folks, we are the Innovation University, okay? We get to make the rules here. Alrighty. So, Melanie, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, I would like to respond.
Go right ahead.
Again, the topic or the question, a lot of students, we got to have the opportunity to ask a lot of students last night, what are things that you want to see change in the SGA? And a lot of students can't think of a question to ask us or to provide us with because they don't know the full capacity of what SGA can do. And like I said before, the SGA is everyone on this campus. Working together with everyone on this campus to make it better is what we want to do, is what we're here for tonight.
Thank you. Any other candidates who would like to respond?
And I echo Melanie, and I do believe that transparency and what it is that the SGA does is something that is extremely important. And so I would like to reflect back on what it is that I had said about incorporating the media organizations and revamping the PR committee. That is one thing that the PR committee does absolutely amazing work. And I think that I mean, as with all committees in the SGA, everyone's a little stretched for personnel. I know this for a fact. But I feel like with some of the ideas that Mariana and I have had of potentially having the different committees create their own PR and then submitting it to the PR committee in order so that like it's the committee itself which is creating their own marketing, which is telling the rest of the SGA, the rest of the student body, what it is that is happening inside their committee, and then it is the job of the PR committee to find how best to distribute those. So I feel like that is another way in which we are able to sort of open up not just media of all kinds, but also open up more lines of communication with the students themselves.
Thank you. Would folks like to respond?
I mean, they're saying exactly what I would say. I think transparency and getting the word out there is very important for Stevens students. When I became head of the PR committee, that was a little less than a year ago. The Stevens Instagram account had less than 50 followers and 2 posts. Now we're over to 500 followers, and we're definitely on an upswing. I really think that Stevens students are actually starting to get to know what we're doing. We have started to send out newsletters to the student body. We have a quick response survey, which I implemented as PR head, where basically senators are going out and talking about the problems that we're having rather than just sending online forms that no one responds to. So making sure that senators are not only senators on Sundays, but senators throughout the week is probably something that I think is the most important.
Alrighty, folks. Thank you very much. That closes our rebuttal period. And now we're going to go do some opening statements. So Dakota, I will ask you to begin since you were the first responder. We'll go in the same order, okay?
Okay. So thank you.
Absolutely.
I guess as part of my opening remarks, I would have said, as did the rest of my colleagues, thank you all for showing up. I know it's very busy. Wednesday nights are always crazy, and 9 o'clock happens to be when all of everything happens. So thank you very much for choosing to be here. I hope you learned something. But as Olivia said, my name's Dakota. I think a couple people around this campus know me as the walking stick with red glasses and the hair. That's fine. But thank you. But as I said, I did want to say thank you. I know a whole bunch of faces out in this crowd, but I do hope that the faces I don't know get to know me a little more over the course of the night, and I look forward to meeting you as well, so please come by and speak to me afterwards. I was very pleased that Mariana is here with me this evening, and I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful night.
And then, hi, my name is Mariana Fleming, as Dakota and Olivia previously said, and I'm running as Dakota's running mate for Vice President of Operations. So we'll tell you a little bit about our platform. You can read about more of it on our Instagram and Facebook posts that we'll be putting up in the next week or so, and through the pamphlets that Regan so kindly put together. So the 3 main parts of our platform are elevating the reputation of the SGA. A lot has really changed in the last 3 years over Matt Hunt and Tommy Daly being president. So we've definitely gone from an over-glorified budgeting committee to a really dynamic group of students who are working on all different facets of campus to change a lot of different things. We're focusing in on academics through the new Vice President of Academic Affairs position that's been added. So we have a hand to bring the students' opinions into the classroom. We all know Campus Life Committee. Thank you for your beautiful Adirondack chairs and the water filling stations. And there are a lot of other great committees doing really great things that students sometimes don't know about. So we're looking to repurpose the PR committee so that they're no longer advertising. Well, they'll still be advertising events, but the committee chairs will work with them to submit their flyers to them. And then they can work on rebranding the SGA so that students can really know what we're really doing and to leverage how they can help them. Our other two biggest points are our involvement in Hoboken. We've been involved through the Ad Hoc Municipal Affairs Committee with affairs in Hoboken, but we shouldn't just stop being involved after that. And we're also looking to expand extracurricular learning, which we'll tell you more about later on.
All right, thank you, folks. Move to our next group.
Hello again, and good evening to everyone who is here tonight. I would like to first begin by saying we really appreciate, again, that you take the time out of your busy schedules to come here and listen to the opinions of the potential future leaders this campus has to offer you. Tonight, you will have the opportunity to gain insight about each of the candidates, ask questions about things that you want to find the answer to, and be able to make an informed decision about who you believe is who is the best team, for this job. We would like to begin with our reason for being in this election. Jose and I are fairly new additions to the SGA and understand that the organization's value and impact can have on this campus. We both learned over the course of our time that the SGA has the potential to make impact on everyone in this room. The SGA has the built to serve as the voice of the students. Jose and I were motivated to join SGA to be the voices for those students which may have not been heard. And together we realized that we could be the voice for so many of whose voices were left behind. We are in need of dedicated representatives who are willing to change the course of what is current. People who are relatable, accountable, and passionate about improving the experience of Stevens. The role of president and vice president should be to gather all the thoughts and ideas from the students and administration alike and decide what will benefit you the most. And we want to be your voice. We will be sure you feel comfortable coming to us about anything and make your experience and the experience of other students better for years to come.
As mentioned before, my name is Jose Angeles, and a little bit about our platform. We, of course, all thank you for being here, all these candidates here as well. And we hope to give you a little bit more about what the SGA can do. So our platform, just going to give you the three main words: health, inclusivity, and transparency. And you will learn more about that through the questions that we will answer, through discussions with us, and we hope that you have a great night. Thank you.
Hey. Okay. So again, my name is Lucas Gallo. I did talk a little bit about some of the actual concrete things that we want to do as a cabinet. But when you look at what being the president of the student government is, basically that person is in charge of being the communication between the student body and the administration. And when you're looking at that role, you want to put someone in that position that has been in a lot of different aspects of student life here at Stevens. I've been an RA, I'm a tour guide, I'm a club leader, like many of these people up here, but I feel like I've related to a lot of the Stevens student body in ways that none of the other tickets have. I have shown that my opinions in the SGA throughout the past 3 years have done actual effects. I did the gender neutral housing bill, and Rami right here has done an amazing amount of things for the student government, and he's going to talk more about his position and what the vice president does. But I think that's what you should focus on when you're voting for a president and vice president. Who is the person that is going to speak to the administration on behalf of the majority of the student body?
Hi everyone, I've already been introduced by Olivia and now Lucas as well, but again, my name is Rami Kamoor. I'm currently a senator and I'm hoping to become Vice President of Operations of the SGA. When you look at the role of Vice President of Operations, it entails overseeing the internal affairs of the SGA, as well as being a liaison between our cabinet and Senate. I'm fortunate to say that I'm currently the longest serving member of the SGA, having been a senator since the spring of 2015. And I hope to use my experience within SGA to oversee the Senate and help senators pursue their own initiatives.
So I guess we'll just touch on some of the more concrete things we want to do as a cabinet. One of those things being establishing a connection between the admissions office, which does not exist, and student life. So that students are able to perpetuate the different initiatives that are being taken on by student life, such as inclusivity and diversity initiatives. So that's one thing that we want to talk about, and we'll get more into that later. I'm done with time, but thank you very much.
All righty. Thank you very much for your kind of opening statement, so we do appreciate it. For those that walked in the room, we kind of switched around the order. We did a question, we went back to opening statements, we forgot, I apologize, but we're getting back to it. So, we had our first question that was asking about important issues. So let's move on to the second, and this question is going to be now for Melanie and Jose. However, it's going to be just particularly for the vice presidential candidate. Here is the question. The Vice President of Operations role has come a long way from where it was 2 years ago. What would be something that you would like to do to change the position? Jose, you have 2 minutes.
From our discussion with Kat, we had a meeting with them today, with Tommy and Kat today. What we want to have from the Vice President of Operations role is a little bit more of the cohesiveness of the entire cabinet, and have the fact that as the Vice President of Operations, you are in charge of a lot of the committees in the SGA. But there are also a few committees that aren't even following the same structure. That should be something that should be addressed, and something that should be somewhat of a cohesive and a more structured view of the SGA in terms of how it runs internally. Besides the position itself of running the internal affairs of the SGA, the Vice President of Operations should serve a little bit more of a more visible purpose on campus. Both the President and the Vice President are very essential to the student experience at Stevens, and we want to make sure that as a team, as a duo, that we will represent the students on campus. So that's something that I would like to see as hopefully becoming the Vice President through our ticket. We need to be better at making connections between our students and our SGA.
Thank you. Now we're going to swing it over to Rami and Lucas. Rami, you are the Vice Presidential candidate, so the floor is yours. 2 minutes.
Okay, so funny enough, a lot of what I want to accomplish as a Vice President of Operations doesn't have to do with the role itself, but our Senate. The role of the Vice President of Operations is to be a liaison between the Cabinet and the Senate. And I feel like a lot of our senators, being a member of the Senate, there's a bit of a disconnect between our Cabinet and Senate. Senators should be encouraged to pursue initiatives, and I plan on working with the Senate to pursue their own initiatives. I've already done that as our Constitution and Bylaws Chair. I've helped sponsor several bills, etc. And something else I want to do is revitalize our Student Affairs Committee. In case you don't know, the SGA has a Student Affairs Committee, which is a group of liaisons to several offices in Howe, and that's been very underutilized in recent years. We plan on using the relationships we have with the administration to all those offices to hopefully get the conversation going, have those liaisons regularly sit in meetings and like Career Center, Residence Life, etc., and just keep the SGA in the loop, which would help us pursue initiatives more efficiently.
Thank you. And Mariana, 2 minutes.
So I have 2 goals as Vice President of Operations. The first of which is increasing involvement in committees. As Olivia had said, I'm president of Phi Sigma Sigma, and the way that we run our committees is the president and the vice president actually aren't part of any committees, which is similar to the SGA. However, the intention with Phi Sigma Sigma is because we are on all of the committees. So something that I think would be really beneficial going forward is for the Vice President of Operations to just pop in once a month for each committee's meeting, just to kind of keep tabs on what's going on and keep a pulse on different things and to make sure that line of communication is open between the cabinet and the different committees of the Senate. The next thing I want to do is during our meeting with Kat and Tommy, she really emphasized to me the importance of having your thing that you do. So as head of the Academic and Curriculum Advancement Committee, something that I've found is when we go to fix issues in one department, there's another department that's doing something really similar and has already solved the problem, and we keep trying to reinvent the wheel in a lot of different places. So one of the things that I found on my co-op term for Turner Construction Company was they have this thing called the Turner Knowledge Network. And what you can do is if you're on a job site and you have a problem, you can post in the Turner Knowledge Network what the problem was, what you did to try to resolve it, and if it was successful or not. Something that I want to do is introduce a program like this for the SGA and for Stevens administration, particularly with academic offices, because we're always reinventing the wheel in different places, when really if we just open up that communication a little bit and keep a log of what we've tried before, we'll be able to tackle more problems more efficiently.
Thank you. So like a Stevens Reddit, kind of, right? In a way? No, not really? Okay, that's fine. That's all right. Alrighty, folks, that is now open for, we now have a rebuttal. So each ticket will have up to 2 minutes to respond if you'd like. You do not have to, but it's encouraged if you'd like.
So I wanted to talk about the idea to have a uniform structure for committees. I'm not a big fan of that, only because the committees really vary in size. You have committees like Constitution and Bylaws, which have up to 3 members at any time, and then committees like the Entertainment Committee, which have a very detailed structure because they have the really large membership, though I think logistically that's not always the best thing. My committee, when we have our meetings, there's like kind of a structure. It's pretty loosey-goosey, but we still manage to accomplish a lot because I'm a strong chair of the meeting and we're able to share ideas and get our point across that way. And as far as using the student liaison committee, Kat said that wasn't really successful in a lot of ways, and she had a hard time getting senators to volunteer. So while it is important to build and utilize relationships we have with student administrators, because it has been unsuccessful in the past, I'm not sure how to bring it back in a successful way in the future, and if that's worth the time of the SGA.
Thank you. Rami.
So I actually disagree with Mariana. I believe that there shouldn't be a uniform structure for our committees because each committee serves a different purpose, obviously. So for example, in the case of Entertainment Committee, which is very large and composed mostly of non-senators, I wouldn't want it to function as Constitution and Bylaws Committee does, where weekly meetings and minutes and all that. I think the Vice President of Operations needs to tailor to the needs of every single committee and work with them on establishing the structure that's best for them. And yeah, that's what I would hope to accomplish as Vice President of Operations.
So I guess to reiterate, or elaborate a little bit, from our discussion with Kat and Tommy, and I do have to say, I think you might have misheard Mariana.
I apologize, I clearly misheard.
That was the big elephant in the room. We got it. It's
totally
okay.
It's fine. But from our discussion with with Kat and Tommy, what I meant more by structured is to make sure that the committees have everything that they need, because right now having 3 committee members, and we all talk about the fact that committees seem very stretched in personnel. We need to be better at having the committees have everything that they need in terms of the people, the action items, the things and the initiatives that they want, and the support that they need from senators, whether they be in that committee or not. The VPO obviously already does meet with them in various ways, and at least that from our conversation with Kat, she does say that she meets with them, and we're going to continue that. But we want to make sure that if there's a committee that is not thriving with all the members that they need, that we can provide that support, and that it's not limited to the amount of people that are already there. Just because you have an assigned committee does not mean that you have to be the only one working for that.
I'm sorry? Nope. Sorry. Rules. Alrighty, and that is the conclusion of that question. Thank you very much, folks. And now, Parker.
All right,
it's
with
up for you.
The third question to both candidates this time, do you believe the SGA should take an opinion given certain circumstances when it is charged with representing the entire student body? Lucas and Rami, you are first.
Go ahead.
So I'd argue that it's the job of the SGA to have opinions when presented with certain situations. When we're elected by students, they put a trust in us to make decisions on their behalf. And with things like the GN Forte issue, et cetera, I think the SGA does need to take a stance and vouch for the students. Obviously, there is disagreement. We obviously can't represent the opinion of every single student, but it is important that we do take a stance and make certain recommendations to the administration.
I'd say, as president of the student government, it's your job to figure out what the consensus is on the Stevens campus. And it is your job as the president to speak to that consensus to the administration. So I do believe that it is the job of the student body and especially the president of the student government to really put forward those opinions towards the administration. Yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, Dakota and Mariana. Also, at any point, if you would like me to repeat the question, just let me know.
Oh, sure. That would be great if you would, I guess.
All right. Do you believe the SGA should take an opinion given certain circumstances when it is charged with representing the entire student body?
Yes, I believe it should, because as my lovely colleagues down on my left said, we are the elected voice of the student body, and I believe that the reason why we have senatorial re-elections every year and also why we host the cabinet elections every year is because we look for the new face on who can most adequately represent the entire Stevens student body as a whole. And so that is why I believe, like in the case of, as it were, the Gianforte naming has just most recently passed, but also the propositions such as the gender-neutral housing bill, which I know was very influential and I think was an absolutely essential part of Stevens community that was formed by an opinion of the Senate. But I would also like to say that in regards to the Gianforte bill in particular, it is very important that we form opinions to unify the Stevens student body and find ways to come to consensus. The most recent thing that I worked on in the Senate was actually a bill, a proclamation on the naming of the Gianforte Center. And I believe that it found a remarkable way to bring together everyone in the room. It was voted on unanimously, and it was a very charged subject. And I believe that it is something that it is very important to have opinions, because that is the one way that we can form a conversation, a dialogue that can then bring everybody together.
Something that's important to just take note of too is we're the voice of the student body. How can you have a voice if you don't have an opinion? I've also talked to Tommy a lot about this, and a lot of times when he's working with upper level administration, they'll directly ask him what the opinion of the student body is and what his opinion is. And it's his job to help advise the president, and he'll give him advice sometimes too. So it's important that we do have that opinion so that we can help at every level that we need to.
Thank you. Melanie and Jose?
So similar to the other candidates, we all are in agreement that the job of the SGA is to represent the students. We are the voice of the students. So having an opinion on certain things that go on campus, such as the Gianforte thing, that is our job as SGA senators, as SGA, as part of the cabinet, as anything elected that is part of the SGA. That is our job, so we should have an opinion. From our conversations with other students from last night that we had, the opinions of what they have should be represented by us in terms of things that they also want to see, things that are in workings, such as having a smoke-free campus. There are a lot of students that are concerned about that, and it should be the opinion of not just a few senators, not just a few members, not just a few students on this campus. It should be the opinion of also the SGA, so that we can enact certain things and certain recommendations for the administration to actually see these things move forward.
And then reiterating, it's not just the president's and vice president's job to have an opinion for the Senate. It is not the Senate's job to have an opinion for the students. We all need to have an opinion. And it doesn't matter if your opinion goes against something else that's being said by administration. You all in this room have a right to speak your mind. And we as an SGA should encourage students to speak up. Because the more you speak up, the more change can be done.
Thank you. Time to open up the rebuttal period. Would anyone like to take the floor?
If no one else does, I will. I'd like to expand more upon what I said. And I feel that what I said may have been taken incorrectly. The senators aren't the ones who have the opinions. The students are the ones who have the opinions. We, as district, we help coordinate the districts of students. And so we are able to be the voice of those opinions to the cabinet and to the rest of the Senate, which is then translated up to the administrators, and they can do their work that they need from there. Because without this key piece, the Senate sharing the opinions, having their own opinions as students themselves, and sort of working that towards the administration, there is no way that we are able to really come together as a school and find a way to find some middle ground on some of these more polarizing issues.
I agree with Dakota, and I think Tommy has done this really well so far. But the hardest part of the job is foregoing your own opinion for the opinion of the student body. So being able to figure out what the opinion of the student body is, I think, is probably the most important job as president, someone that people can confide in, and I hope that I'm the resource for the student body to come to with any opinions that they may have. And as hard as it is, I think the job of the president is to sort of forego your own opinion in order to really help the student body grow as a whole.
It is also not only the president's opinion, it is the whole Senate's opinion. Sorry, let me rephrase that. It's not only the president's job to find out the opinion of the students, it is all of the Senate's job to find out the opinion of the students. Because all of the Senate is elected by the student body. So it's, again, saying and showing students how I'm saying this is showing students what the SGA can actually do for you. So if I were to be elected president, I would very much so encourage my Senate to get more involved, face-to-face conversation with everyone. If you don't know who your senator is, that's a problem. We need to reestablish those relationships in order to grow and succeed as a campus.
All right. Thank you, folks. Moving on to our next question, which will also be directed towards both of the candidates. How do you plan to effectively communicate information to the student body and administration? I believe Dakota and Mariana, you are up first. So you have 2 minutes.
So this is really part of the biggest part of the platform we're running on is how we're going to start communicating these ideas out. We're going to repurpose the PR committee, as we've said, to work on rebranding the SGA so that they're able to get more of what the SGA is actually doing out towards the students. We also really want to form a solid relationship with the student and with the other media outlets on campus. Something that we're particularly interested in is establishing a regular correspondent for the student at our meetings, and maybe it could be a regular column within the student that would cover what the SGA is doing. Because the student and the other media organizations are the main source of information for what is going on campus, read by both faculty, staff, and students. So we really want to build up those relationships so that more information can get out there in addition to the district emails that already go out.
I'd also like to say that sort of working on the more administrator side of things, that was, Mariana spoke on how we could communicate with the student body more. I personally, as I hope that you choose me to be your president, would sort of work the relationships that I already have with many of the administrators and how to help them understand more of not only what the SGA does. I think some of them are still kind of uncertain what the SGA is, but also what all the great things that we're doing. I have these very unique relationships with faculty, staff, everybody all up and down Howe and around campus, and I feel like that could definitely be used to the benefit of all of you, to all of the people who are not here in this room right now, and in fact to all of the faculty, staff, and administrators themselves. So.
I think we need to tag team because no one knows what the honor board does either. So I think we need to figure that one out. All right, we're going to move on to our next ticket. You have 2 minutes.
Could you repeat the question again?
Absolutely. How do you plan to effectively communicate information to the student body and administration?
Okay. So effectively communicating is something that we have kind of already done. As newly elected officials of the SGA, we're connected with RSOs, and we still are connected with RSOs and other students on campus through our previous connections. We're not only senators, we're not only subcommittee heads. So our outreach, our plan to communicate is obviously going back to those same groups and tying back our connections from what we have from orientation leaders, from being involved with other organizations, and making sure that these people, that our friends know personally how the SGA is doing and what we already do. I think for things of outreach, it always goes with a small little penetration of your friends, and then they spread it out, and then more people spread it out. That's how things get communicated a little more, and obviously we can do that as well. Everybody here has relationships with administration. Everybody here has relationships with other organizations on campus, Greek Life included. It all goes with how our outreach is and how our relationship is with the student body itself, and having experience with things outside of the SGA is the first reason that we're going to be able to communicate that.
And in terms of communication with administration, it is not only important for a president to establish relationships with administration, it's important for the administration to then establish relationships with the people the president is working with. The president has that one-on-one conversation, but it's also important to know, it's also important for administration to know who else they could talk to besides the president. And that is how to effectively communicate with administration.
Before you answer, folks, if you're planning to leave the room, which is fine, please wait until all the respondents have answered, just out of respect for everyone. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, so I'm in agreement with the other tickets about that we do need to have more formal channels of communication with the administration. And our plan for that, even though I've already talked about it, is the Student Affairs Committee. We want to leverage the relationships we already have to encourage the administration to keep us in the loop and recognize the SGA more. Sort of, like the way we're looking at it as these are the formal channels of communication we can have with the administration, liaisons to different offices and how, and that's the way we kind of want to approach this.
So PR and open communication with the student body definitely needs a lot of work. I'm current PR head, and my committee is Monica, who's right there, and Regan, who ran the presidential debate PR because I was not allowed to. Yeah,
True.
Those three people are the people that send out literally everything to the student body. That's not good enough, honestly. Rami is the one that drafted our new constitution, and we have a whole bunch of new senators, hopefully new positions on the Senate coming in. We hope to increase the size of PR because having me and 2 other people be in charge of all of public relations for the whole Stevens student body is a huge thing to take on. I think that being just me and 2 other people, we've done a pretty good job so far. Definitely needs a lot of work. One thing that we just had last week was cookies in the cabinet. I ran this event under the Public Relations Committee, and we got a lot of feedback saying that people want more district emails, so maybe doing something that's weekly. Also, partnering up with the Stute and SITTV has been done in the past. SITTV used to come and film all of our meetings. That would be nice to have, but if people are not interested in SITTV of doing that, we're not going to force them to do it. We need to increase the actual involvement of public relations on the Senate in order to get more word out to the student body.
All right, thank you. All right, and now I will open it up for response. You have 2 minutes. Melanie.
Effective communication is done by face-to-face communication. There is a lot of emails that get sent out back and forth between administration and your friends and your clubs, and that's not always effective. Face-to-face communication is effective, and that is how we are going to increase communication between the students, more face-to-face contact with the students, not only as a president and vice president, not only as a cabinet, but as a Senate, as an SGA as a whole. That needs to be increased more. And then again, like I said, with administration, it's only going to help administration do their job better, working with us, if they know more students. I went up to Student Life yesterday, and Janie was like, I have seen students I've never seen before because of Quack or Treat. We need to do things like that more so that administration gets to know more students.
So I think that one of the most important things about reaching out to a variety of students, particularly pertaining to Mariana and myself, is that we literally did not know each other until about, when did ACA start meeting? 7 weeks ago? Oh, since when I joined the ACA, so 7 weeks ago. But we had heard like bits and pieces of each other throughout the fragments of our very different organizations. So I'd be like, Mariana Fleming, yes, who's that? Mariana would be like, oh, yes, Dakota, who's that? We worked for the past 3 or 4, and I worked for the past going on 3 years now in such very different realms that we can continue to be in those realms, but now with a mix of the two. All my nerds, it's like a Venn diagram. You see, you get to put the 2 together. There's some space in the middle, and you each have your own parts too. But it would be great to be able to sort of leverage both Mariana's different communities from myself and my different communities from Mariana to sort of reach more students.
That's also really helpful with leveraging our relationships that already exist with administrations too. Since we are involved in such different organizations, we've been involved with such different administrators. So we have different relationships with the people who sit in HAB all day and not the same ones. We've also shown that we know how to leverage the networks that already exist through our campaign that we've been running so far. We already have stuff like the Facebook groups established and our own personal networks, so that's what we've been doing to kind of get our platform out there and get our word out there. And then as far as SITTV goes, what we were thinking about doing is bringing back a lot of the interviews they've done. I know last year for the presidential debate, they had interviews each ticket. And in the past, they've also interviewed senators so that students can get to know who their senators are. And that would be something that could happen with a district email. So let's say that SITTV interviewed me, and then I send out my next district email, and I can say, hey, if you want to learn a little bit more about me, here's an interview that I did with SITTV.
Thank you. Gentlemen?
So I've actually known Rami for a little bit of time. When I joined the SGA, Rami was part of it. But we do have very different spheres of influence when it comes to being a part of the student body. Rami was the vice chair of the anime convention here, CPAC. I am involved in a lot of other different organizations. Rami's a huge member of C2GS. I'm a tour guide and have been involved in club sports and things like that. So we do have very different spheres of influence, with just like Mariana and Dakota. I think is super useful when you're trying to reach the majority of the student body. We just want to make sure that Stevens students are being included in the meetings of the administration. So we don't want to be blindsided again like last year when Residence Life all of a sudden put on a meal plan on all of the Stevens students. So we want to make sure that we have liaisons like Rami was talking about that'll be able to foresee all these different problems that are just going to be thrown at the student body before they actually do.
All right, thank you to all 3 tickets. Appreciate it.
All right, with the next question. Are you content with the level of commitment from the current SGA senators? Interestingly enough, starting with the only not senator.
Question first, sorry. Who is this directed at?
Only vice presidents. Sorry, forgot to clarify.
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, I am not a senator. I am a subcommittee head. But from the interactions that I've had with other senators, there have been a lot of complaints about certain interactions that they have within their committees. Lucas is actually one of the people that has complained that his committee does need more people. So it's not maybe about the amount of engagement that he gets from the senators in his committee or other committees, but there needs to be more of a set from. There needs to be more engagement that senators have within each other as a group. From our conversation with Kat, she has said that previously there hasn't been much of an action item, and there have been complaints that senators would go into a committee and not do anything, and it would only be the committee heads that did everything. We're glad to know that now that has changed a little bit, but we want to make sure that in the future that we don't meet that same issue again. And that we continue to have a Senate that is engaged, that is continuing to maintain that level of involvement to better the student experience.
Thank you.
Okay, so am I satisfied with the amount of work our senators are putting in? Yes, the senators here do work very hard, but what I don't think a lot of them realize is that they have more requirements than just serving on committees. A lot of our senators fulfill their committee requirements and then go home. I think our senators need to realize that they should pursue more legislative initiatives. I think legislative initiatives should be the bulk of a senator's work, and as Vice President of Operations, I would work closely with the Senate to make sure they pursue more initiatives. So am I satisfied with the amount of work that goes in? Yes. The Senate is currently strained, which is why with the Constitution we're voting on this coming Sunday, we create more Senate positions. But I do think senators need to realize that they should be writing more bills and proclamations, and I plan on working with the Senate to achieve that.
Thank you.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Of course. Are you content with the level of commitment from the current SGA senators?
So, like my previous ticket mates up here have said, every senator in the SGA currently works really hard. So yes, I am satisfied with the level of commitment and the work they're putting in. Something that we can look at, though, based on the size of the Senate we have now, is maybe redistributing where that effort is going. So for example, with ACA, my committee has around 7 or 8 members, and for a lot of senators, it's their second committee because it's something that they're really interested in helping in. But something to take note of is part of the VP of Ops position is you assign senators to committees. If you see that a committee is understaffed and underrepresented and you need more senators on there, you can pull senators from other committees and reassign them to get different committees the help that they need. And then they can go back to that other committee as their secondary committee. So as far as my personal committee goes, I think they're all amazing, and out of all of them, I've required work not only in the committee meetings, but outside of committee meetings, and it's such a critical part to how we run that when the freshmen came in to do their committee rotations, that I had them do some work outside of the committee rotations too, and I found that that's really successful.
Thank you. Time for responses. Would anyone like to go first? Jose.
So, again, to reiterate, I'm not really part of the committees, so I'm not really, I guess, aware of how engaged all the senators are. But when it comes to having problems within the Senate, when it comes to having problems within the committees, I think it comes back to reminding the senators why they joined the SGA in the first place. What problems did they want to see solved, what they wanted to do, and they should have goals, not only for their committee, but also for the betterment of the student experience. So when it comes to having issues with committees and having issues with involvement and engagement, that's what needs to be done. People need to be reminded about why they have joined something. They need to be reminded what their motivation was in the beginning, and that will make them more passionate about what they do and why they do it.
So I wanted to reiterate that part of the VP Ops things that I would like to do is popping in once per month for each committee meeting. So if there is a committee that's underperforming and maybe not communicating the best, I'll be able to find out relatively quickly what's going wrong. Also, committees do set goals. That's one of the first things that we do at but with Senate retreat in the beginning of the year is you get your committee revealed to you through a big reveal ceremony that the VP of Ops set up, and then you talk about with your new committee what your goals are going to be. So right now as ACA, it started as me and 2 other students and has since expanded, but the goals that we set upon that first meeting and in our first couple of meetings that we talked about, we're accomplishing. So as a current committee head, I know how to run a successful committee. I know what that process looks like. And I think as VP Ops, I'll be able to help all of the committees implement the strategies that I've used as a committee head as well.
So like Olivia said in opening remarks, I am the committee man. And I think the issue is deeper than, I don't think the solution to this is just assigning senators to committees based on need in each committee. I think there's a genuine disconnect between our Senate and cabinet. And that's why, as a Vice President of Operations, I would want to work closely with our Senate to make sure they're pursuing initiatives, to make sure they have the help they need. Unfortunately, I'm able to say that I have already done that through being Constitution and Bylaws Chair, and I hope to continue doing so.
I love how you all keep referencing back to what I've said. Like, thank you. I really appreciate it. It really means a lot. Alrighty, folks, thank you. We are approaching, I'd say, around 10 minutes. We're going to extend it to around an hour rather than 50 minutes. So we're nearing our last few questions, so just bear that in mind. All right, where to go next? This is for presidential candidates only. With the change in administration of the Hoboken government, soon coming up, how will you make sure that they have the interest of Stevens and its students in mind? We are starting with Lucas. 2 minutes.
So the idea of a vice president of municipal affairs has been around for a while. However, I do not believe that it should be a cabinet position. I think we should walk before we should run. There is a current committee on municipal affairs within the student government that is sort of disorganized, doesn't have a direction. And I think we need to formalize that and bring that together before we could actually make it into an actual position. Sort of what was done with the Academic Affairs Committee. It was a committee within the SGA, and then as it developed over time, it became a cabinet position. Right now, we have a very divisive election within the city of Hoboken, and I have taken the time to try to sort of figure out where the candidates stand. And I think that's what the job of the Municipal Affairs Committee should do, but I do not think that at this point it should actually be a cabinet position. I do think it's really important because the Municipal Affairs Committee would be in charge of figuring out if legislators in Hoboken want more shuttles, whether they are rezoning our properties so that we could build better buildings and things like that. But before we run, we need to walk, and I really believe that having some sort of position like that within the SGA that's more established is super important.
Thank you. Dakota.
Okay. So just to make sure I have the question right, could you repeat it again for me?
Absolutely. Let me get to my spot. With the change in administration of the Hoboken government, how will you make sure that they have the interest of Stevens and its students in mind?
Okay. I think that's a very good question, and that is.
Well, thank you very much. I did not write it, but
Well,
that's okay.
Whoever wrote it, you're a genius. That is something that Mariana and I are keeping very a hand on the pulse of. I have been attending as many as I can meetings, general body meetings of the College Democrat Society as they host informational sessions with many of the mayoral candidates. And I've been able to sort of get a feeling for how the ones that I have seen are, how they act, how they feel. And I feel that if elected, I would be able to sort of use what I already know about them and see how we can work Stevens and keep them still in their good graces. And as for the appointment to the cabinet of a vice president of municipal affairs, that is not something that I think should be rushed into, as Lucas said. That is something that would need time to coagulate. We would need to move it from an ad hoc committee to see what it is that we can do. We would need to speak to administration at the school to sort of find out what it is that they're even allowed to do. And then work slowly over the course of probably a year or honestly maybe longer to turn this into a position that has the power and that has the resources that it needs to really advocate for Stevens in the community of Hoboken. But what I think that we can do on our way to creating that position is maintain a presence in Hoboken. Stevens is a very large landmass in Hoboken, and it also forms a great source of population. A great percentage of the population of Hoboken goes to school here. And what we can do is to continue showing our school spirit, showing that we are here, getting off of campus some, and attending, as I did with a few of my senator friends, the master plan meetings for the city and other city council events. And so I believe that by doing all of these things, we will be able to keep Stevens in the minds and good graces of Hoboken and its city council.
Thank you. All right, and Melanie?
So there will be a new Hoboken mayor, a new Hoboken government coming very, very soon, just like you will have some new SGA members and SGA cabinets. And the only way to increase collaboration with them, honestly, I see it the same way as having or establishing relationships and collaboration the same way that we do here at Stevens with administration. So having the cabinet, the Senate, Stevens students go meet with the government of Hoboken, talk to them frequently, infrequently, talk about what their plans are, what Stevens' plans are, and have everyone be on the same page and have those relationships established. And then once those relationships are established and focusing on what Hoboken's relationship with the university is, as my job as president and as the Senate of Stevens is to 100% always remember to advocate for the voice of the students. So while Hoboken wants to make all these changes, I have to sit back and analyze, like, okay, how is this going to affect Stevens students? And I and whoever I'm working with and the people who are on the SGA need to always remember that.
Thank you. All right, we will now open it up. If you'd like to respond, further a point. You don't have to. Dakota?
Yeah, I'd like to expand a little bit on, for those of you that don't know, expand a little bit on the Municipal Affairs Committee, ad hoc committee. So it was formed only to help with this current election, really. It was formed with the idea in mind of getting students to be more involved in having a say in the future of Hoboken. And I think that with Target 1870 and with all of the great stuff they did with the Hoboken Quality of Life Coalition, yes, that they did a very good job in starting that ball rolling. But something that we can do and something that the Vice President of Operations would be super good at doing is really developing this, sort of seeing where we can take this municipal affairs committee. Like I said, we would have to speak to administration about how much we can do and how much power we would be able to have, because this is a very touchy topic. Administrators might not, there would be a little bit of delineation between what it is students would like to say and what it is the administration is allowed to say. And so I believe that, as I said, by sort of getting this ball rolling a little bit faster, sort of getting it to develop over the course of a year, maybe 2 years, we would be able to really solidify those core values that Stevens has in Hoboken. And in direct relation to if at some point there is added a cabinet member as the vice president of municipal affairs, it's very important to keep in mind that currently students can't always, and especially depending on what the next mayors may or may not be, students cannot always depend upon having an ear in the mayor's office. I know that we were very, very involved in this mayoral election. I think that's great. But we need to remember that if we do not have a position such as this, there would be no way to remain involved in future election cycles.
Thank you. John?
I'm not just going to repeat their points, so no.
No, that's fine. Thank you. We appreciate it. All right.
All right. So as we are approaching the 1 hour limit, this will be our last question for this section of the debate. All right. So this question is open to all candidates, starting with Dakota and Mariana. Were there any circumstances that made you want to take a different course of action than that of Mr. Daly and Ms. Oesterly?
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
This is a kind of touchy topic, given that Mr. Daly is sitting right over there. Slouch all you want. We know you're here. Personally, I know that from the positions that I have held, as some of you may or may not know, and as Olivia actually announced earlier, I am the president of the Torch Alliance. There were some things that happened on campus regarding Gianforte, some of them involving Mr. Daly, and I was actually grateful enough to be invited to a meeting between President Tommy Daly and President Nairman Farvarden as well to sort of work these out, that caused a bit of contention on campus. And personally, I feel like one thing I would try to do is, we okay? Okay. One thing that I would try to do is find more outlets to sort of resource within the student body in order to create more fleshed out announcements when things happen. I do believe, as was stated though, it is very important, I believe Lucas said this earlier, it is very important to forego your own opinions for those of the student body as a whole, however, and I greatly appreciate all that Mr. Daly has done for this school in the past year. So thank you.
For me, what comes to mind immediately is with the stipend bill. And I've talked to Tommy about this, and he has had time to reflect on what kind of went down with that and how that happened, and I know he's learned a lot from it. So I've definitely learned a lot from talking to him about how he wishes he would have handled that differently. Introducing it at a different time and maybe not offering to pay the SGA. So I think as VPO, I maybe would have advised him differently than what had happened.
So if you had told me that I was going to be running in this election as a freshman, I'd tell you to go get some sleep because you obviously are missing out on some. But through my involvement in the past years, and seeing the change or seeing the lack of change of certain things that I find important is really what motivated me to be up here with my running mate here. There are certain things on campus that I believe they should have changed, and what has, I guess, given me thoughts of potentially not being here were the facts that, like, we are all human, we're all students here, but I feel that the initiatives and the concerns that I have should be addressed, and there are certain ideas that we have, of course, of increasing inclusivity on this campus, of increasing the health initiatives, of increasing the transparency in the SGA, because through our involvement, we've realized that this organization in particular has a lot of influence and a lot of impact on the student experience at Stevens. So again, as a freshman, to be completely honest, if you had asked me that question, I wouldn't want to be here. But having been that involved, having seen and met a lot of people, and seeing then the influence that we can have when we all get together, then that is the reason that I'm here, because I know that there are a lot of people whose voices are not being heard, and that is my motivation, and that is our motivation as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so if I were to do anything differently, and this is a hard question to answer because Tommy's so great and smiling right at me, but I think the SGA generally needs to do a better job of picking its battles, and this does sort of relate to the previous question on municipal affairs, but I find it hard to justify initiatives dealing with the Hoboken community when we still have students who don't understand their professors, and we still have students who have to wake up at like 6 a.m. to register for classes, which is next week, so mark your calendars, don't forget. I feel like the SGA should focus first on the students, and then when we have the time and we have the manpower, let's focus on other things. But we just need to pick our battles better and work more for the students before anything else.
Yeah, this guy's the man. For me, I love Tommy. Tommy's one of my best friends. I feel like I'm very different than him in that I have a lot of words. I have the best words, and I think I'm different in that I'm someone that people can rally behind. I like to inspire ideas in others, and Tommy does the same sort of thing, but I feel like I could relate to them on a more personal level. I have been involved in a lot of different things on campus that gives me the experiences to sort of relate to any single Stevens student. And that's sort of how I feel different than Tommy. Even though he is very involved in a lot of different things, we're different people. And yeah, that's all I gotta say about that.
All right. We have just one more response period. I will leave the floor open to you all. It is your choice if you'd like to use it. I did not purposely sit Tommy right behind us. That was all on his doing to sit there. All right, seeing none, I think we will. So now, usually we have closing statements. It would, of course, make sense to do it at the very end. However, since we're approaching 10:30, I think it's good to have you state your closing statements now, and then we'll have audience questions proceed from there. Just so people who are leaving will just have a better sense of who you are before they walk out the doors. And again, reminder, let us wait until they are done responding before you leave, just out of respect for all the tickets. So right now would be a really great time if you wanted to leave the room, just saying. I see you. I'm just kidding, I don't even know you, I'm just kidding. Thanks, Toddy, appreciate it, respectful. Love it. Okay, so we'll start again with the same order that we did opening statements, which weren't really opening statements. So Dakota, Mariana, the floor is yours.
So I would, again, like to thank everybody, including everybody who's leaving, for taking so much time out of their busy schedule and busy night. I know that everything's kind of winding up again. Schedule's fun, woo. But for taking so much time to come and really learn about the candidates here hopefully before submitting your votes. Do remember to vote. But I do want to just, again, reiterate what it is that Mariana and I stand for, and I'll, of course, let you chime in here. But our main three goals is that we want to elevate the status of the SGA, elevate the student idea of the SGA from, as Mariana said, the historically glorified budgeting committee, by sort of working how it is that the SGA gets its news out to the students, whether that be through media organizations such as the SITTV, WCPR, all great things like that, and that we are also super wanting to get involved with Hoboken, making sure that ball stays rolling, reaching out to mayoral everything, city council members at large, sort of helping the municipal affairs committee get off the ground again.
So you all just sat here and saw this whole debate and watched us introduce our platforms, and at a macro level, they probably all seem pretty similar. At the end of the day, we all want the SGA to succeed, and we all want to hear what the student body wants and get things done. However, our ticket has some of the most concrete ideas and direct ways to accomplish these goals moving forward. Thank you all again for coming out tonight, and I hope you learned a lot about the SGA and what we stand for.
When Jose and I decided we were going to go in this head-on, the need of the students always came first. From our experiences on campus, we have worked towards meeting those needs, and with the help and input of the Stevens community, we will see that those needs are met. Many students have said the question, like I've said before, what does the SGA do, or who is the SGA? All members of the student body are members of the SGA. We hope to show you that the SGA can be much more than just budgets. Initiatives like making campus smoke-free, increasing the need for adequate care in the health center, and having sexual health addressed on campus are all the things that have come out of my time on the SGA. You have heard our ideas and what we want to see come forth at Stevens, and we want you all to know that we will work tirelessly to make that happen. We want to be the ones to make sure Stevens becomes more inclusive, bringing together the vast array of students in this community. We want to be the ones to make sure that Stevens is providing all of the services you need to be happy and healthy. We want to be the ones to make sure you know how to get your voices heard, how we can help you, how we can be actively, passionately working to make Stevens truly better for everyone.
Okay, so in closing, I disagree with Mariana that committees should be uniform. That's a joke. But, in all seriousness, thank you all for coming out, and I hope you realize that by voting for us, you're not just voting for a cabinet that will work hard for you, you're voting for a Senate that will also work hard for you, because we're going to work with the Senate. You're voting for an entire SGA that will be hearing your opinions, pursuing initiatives to make your lives as students better. Lucas and I have done that during our time here. We'll continue to do that even more than before, and yeah.
I'm sitting next to some amazing leaders. Dakota, Melanie, Jose, and Mariana are awesome people, and I've loved working alongside them, and even running against them is an honor. We've talked about our ideas, some of them being making sure that the $60,000 you're putting into the school year is worth it. We want to make sure that the TAs that you have in your classes are actually being able to teach you, that professors have the correct resources to actually teach you the information for your degree. We want to make sure that we have different underrepresented majors represented on campus. We want to make sure that Stevens students are, and Rami and I are leveraging the relationships we have with the administration to allow Stevens students to be at the center of the decisions that the university is making. We've talked about our ideas. We've talked about our rapport with the administration, but most importantly, we have shown you that when you look at Rami and myself, you see two very different people who represent the majority of the Stevens student body. As president, I will work diligently to ensure that not only the cabinet, but also senators will be working hard to improve your lives at Stevens. Like we have expressed, our experience as established leaders has led us to this point, and I believe that we can take the SGA forward into becoming an organization that is utilized by every Stevens student. Established being at the Stu article, but that's what I meant.
I didn't write it.
We're very established,
Yeah.
like super.
Alrighty, folks, let's give them a round of applause. Alrighty, so now it is time for questions from the audience. I highly encourage you to step forward and ask away. Tickets, you will have 2 minutes to respond. However, depending on how many questions we have, we might have to limit response. But the floor is yours. You don't have to raise
Don't
your
all
hand.
run at the same time.
You can.
There's a microphone over there. Please use the microphone. Makes everyone's life easier. You'll also be on our stream.
Yeah, get your 5 minutes of fame. Do it. And I ask audience participants, please direct your question to all of the tickets, to the particular ticket, the vice president, president. Just be specific so they know how to answer accordingly. 2 minutes, yes.
All right,
Oh, wow.
So, good.
You're all set.
We're good? Okay. So I know like with the upcoming election and everything, that's like a huge topic that we're discussing. And a lot of times I feel like in the past, the administration at Stevens hasn't really been able to kind of have the influence with holding Hoboken government accountable for what they're saying, and that like Babbio Garage wasn't able to get finished for 10 years. So with this upcoming election, I know a lot of the candidates said that they want to get everything through for Stevens a lot easier, not have so many issues of struggle between the school and the government. How do you plan to hold them accountable for these promises that they've made, especially on the fact that we've gotten so many students to sign up for voting and they would be representing more of the Hoboken population that way?
All right, Mariana?
So I think the question you're asking, people have been asking about how to hold the government accountable everywhere since the beginning of the history of time. So I don't know, but neither does God or anybody else. But as far as having the student voice heard in Hoboken, I've actually been to zoning board meetings because one of the co-ops that I worked with, they do a lot of work with Stevens, and I've seen the interactions of the zoning board with the Stevens administration, and they get really, really caught up in what the relationship has been and how things have been, and they really lose sight of why they're all there and what their goal is. So by having a position like municipal vice president of municipal affairs, or just giving some more gas to the ad hoc committee that exists right now and bringing that voice into those meetings, we'll be able to remind the Stevens administration why they're there, because we want them there and we need these new resources. And we'll be able to remind the Hoboken Zoning Board what a big part of the Hoboken community that Stevens is.
Any other ticket would like to respond?
Yeah, sure. In terms of holding individuals accountable, it all again relates back to open communication, transparency, frequent communication, establishing relationships with more than just the president of the school, the president of the SGA. It's with establishing relationships with the students, getting the students more involved in the Hoboken community, getting those students who are passionate the opportunity to go speak. I'm sure there's so many people that want to talk about something that's bothering them in Hoboken, they just don't know how. We are their resources to get them there.
I'd just say personally, if I do get elected to this position, I will be sitting down with, hopefully, with the mayor of Hoboken as the voice for the Stevens students, and making sure that their initiatives within the Hoboken government line up with what we're trying to do as a university. I think that that's super important, and as we have a new direction for the Hoboken government, we're also going to have a new direction for the student government. So I hope that together, as we both take our positions, that we're able to sort of come to some sort of common ground and utilizing the Vice President of Municipal Affairs, Committee of Municipal Affairs, to sort of bridge those two different agendas together.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. I wrote down my questions so I don't ramble, because I have a tendency to ramble. So you all talked about representing the opinion of the student body, and that's very easy to do for people who are very outwardly with their opinions, such as myself. But what do you plan to do, and how do you plan to engage and represent the part of the student body who isn't very outwardly with their opinion? Additionally, how do you plan to engage with students you currently don't have any interaction with?
I just want to clarify, is this for any candidate?
Yeah, any and all. I
Alrighty.
encourage all.
Rami?
Sure. So Lucas and I are proud to say that we represent a lot of different subsets of campus, and we'll continue to, like, one of our goals when we first sat down and talked about running is, like, to represent the people who aren't very much represented. I'm a member of some RSOs that aren't very vocal about their opinions, and we'll continue to encourage that. I think once we get the ball rolling, like once SGA accomplishes more, people will feel more comfortable talking to their senators, like once we have that recognition, and we'll encourage that.
Any other ticket?
So we additionally ran with the idea of representing a lot of the unrepresented groups on campus, and that goes into why we are running on a platform that also includes inclusivity on campus. In order to have a campus that claims to be global, that claims to be a diverse community, we need to actually show that, and why this is relevant to that question about engaging the students that aren't really vocal is because those students that feel underrepresented, that feel that they don't have a voice or are not represented in the SGA, are the ones that we would like to represent. Having people that are not giving their opinion to the issues and what they want to see on campus are the main motivations that we want to address, and the main reasons that we want at least a way in a form that we can provide them with the resources and provide them with that feeling of being represented. How we're going to do that is obviously going back to the same groups, going back to the people that we know from our involvement, and making sure that they can have that confidence that we are there to represent them.
I think the answer to your question is sleeper agents. You send in moles, you leave them there for 2 years, and then you ask them to spill everything. No, but I think that, thank you to whoever found that so uproariously funny. that was a better reaction than I was expecting. No, I think that the true answer to your question lies in twofold. This sort of instantaneous knowledge, for myself at least, that comes with having been, for the past several years, working my way through the SGA, from the Committee on Student Interests, the Budget Committee, sitting in on a whole bunch of the meetings with Sundus, the VPSI, and Houston, the VP Finance, and sort of finding out which clubs it is from their respective subcommittee heads who, at least in an organizational standpoint, don't really express themselves as much or don't have as much of a voice on campus, don't have as much weight. And that happens both, like I said, in meetings of the CSI and in meetings of the Budget Committee, because we're able to sort of divine out, okay, what's really happening between the lines here. But on sort of another interpersonal, not taking a step back from RSOs and everything like that, I think that the real best way to just get to know people is to be outward, to be visible, to be approachable, to make friends with people as you pass, and just every day, if you just say, hi, how you doing? Start to get to know someone. Sit down with someone you've never, to go back to middle school, sit down with someone you've never sat with before and learn who they are. But I feel like it's very important to sort of expand your networks, not just rely upon the ones you already have. And that's a good way to get outside of the vocal people like yourself and more towards the students who are a little less on the vocal side.
Another big part of our platform is that rebranding effort that we talked about. Right now, the average student on Stevens campus, if they have a problem, they just complain to their friends about it and then never again. Through our rebranding, we can remind people how senators are their tool to get their voice heard without necessarily having to come and speak in front of everybody.
Thank you.
Hi guys, first I just wanted to thank and congratulate you all on giving such great and thoughtful answers to all the previously asked questions. But one thing that just kind of concerns me is I'm happy with, like, of course, any of the candidates right here, but speaking for the rest of the student body, this is the turnout for what is supposed to represent the entire student body, as you all agreed on. What do you think can be done to really pique the interest of all the students on this campus regarding student government and this election specifically?
I think the reason students aren't as engaged with SGA as they should be is because the SGA hasn't accomplished as much as it should, and I feel like if we continue, like, we're working towards a cabinet and a senate that's going to pursue initiatives and accomplish more and more. Once Stevens students see that we're pursuing initiatives and we're accomplishing more and more, then they'll start to be engaged. So again, I feel like it's sort of a snowball effect. Like, once we start to accomplish, students will start to realize how legitimate the SGA is, and that's basically going to be our approach to making sure that Stevens students are involved.
I agree with Rami. It's nice that you're here with this many people here for the presidential debate. When I was a freshman, I don't even know how many people showed up to the debate. But as we're going in years and as we're accomplishing more and more initiatives, I do think that the Stevens student body will be able to recognize the SGA as an actual source of power for the Stevens students and use it as a tool to sort of get their problems heard by the administration.
Very quickly, when I said the SGA hasn't accomplished a lot, I didn't mean that. The SGA does do a lot, but I'm on SGA, so it would be bad if I said that. But I feel like we should accomplish more, and we have the potential to accomplish more.
I see how you snuck that in there. That was good. Would anyone else like to respond?
Yeah.
Melanie.
It is all about transparency. I firmly believe that a goal of mine and Jose is to get people to be able to answer, what does SGA do accurately? And how are we going to have them answer that question? They need to know what's going on. They need to know who they can talk to about, hey, what is this thing? They need to know who their senators are. They need to know who their president is. They need to know who their vice president is, their cabinet is. It's all about that face-to-face personal communication to really get students to feel like they are connected to something even bigger at Stevens.
I think something of import is what will be on the docket quite soon at another SGA meeting, which is potentially expanding the Senate. I feel that Senate meetings are, while they're open to everybody, not a lot of people come to them or know that they are like invited to come to them, actively invited to come share their voice, share their opinions. And I think that one good thing that will come out of, again, potentially, hopefully, having a larger Senate is smaller district sizes, which means you are able to know better each of the students in your district. For example, I think I speak for almost every senator in the SGA when they say they don't know 100% of the names on their district. And I think that if you do have those interpersonal relationships, if you do have, like, cut it down from, I think it's about, how many students is it in a district right now? Like, it's 100, 60, somewhere in the 100, thank you. About 100 to 50 to something smaller, something that you're then able to work with and sink your teeth into. You can help share what it is that the SGA does, not only in report emails that you send out after SGA meetings or when something big happens, but also as like a sort of group of friends almost, because you can hopefully become closer with your district because it's smaller.
Something else that Dakota and I talked a lot about too is how we have very different sets of friends, so much so that we didn't meet for the 3 years that he's been at Stevens, and that we really understand how to leverage the networks that we already have, like the Stevens Facebook groups and my personal Instagram, apparently. So with that, what we can do is we could get more involved with the student body that way by utilizing networks that already exist that we haven't been using as an SGA. There are ways that you can post polls in there or post feedback things, and we'd be able to get more active feedback. Part of that, too, kind of goes with my answer to the last question to Joyce as well.
All right, thank you, candidates. I like that whole phone a friend concept. We could definitely put that into this portion of the debate. So, hello. You're up.
So we've heard a lot about your plans as VPO and president, but there will be another 4 members of your cabinet. I see that Hannah, Sundus, and Parker are here right now, and they've completed incredible initiatives during their tenure as cabinet members, as well as Houston, who isn't here right now. I'm wondering what areas of improvement you see in the 4 other cabinet positions and how you'd work with your appointees to work on those improvements.
All right, coming in hot. Who's going first?
Sorry to go first again, but so one specific cabinet position that we see room for improvement is Vice President of Finance. We're going to appoint a Vice President of Finance who's very, very policy-oriented because we want to minimize subjectivity in the budgeting process. We do recognize that there is a need for subjective cuts because if we don't cut subjectively, then we won't have enough money to fund all our RSOs. However, where a lot of organizations and students get mad at the SGA is that they follow all the rules, then they get their budget cut anyway. So we're going to work towards putting some of our subjective means of cutting budgets into policy so students don't get as upset. And Lucas.
Yeah. Another huge area of improvement I see is a position that's newly started, so I don't fault her at all because it is a brand new position. She's absolutely amazing. The Vice President of Academic Affairs is something that I think can be taken to a lot of different places. The Vice President of Academic Affairs, I think, should be talking to faculty and figuring out their problems. Because if the faculty is having problems, I think those problems are actually trickling down to the students. So if they're not able to understand the technology like in their classrooms, like I've been talking about before, or they're not able to have good labs or have the correct materials for their labs, which has happened in my D3 and D4 classes multiple times, there should be some sort of survey that's sent out to all of the faculty that's saying, hey, what are the problems here that we can address that hopefully will trickle down to students. Another thing that could be done is having the VPAA be more active in the faculty senate, which exists. And the faculty senate, its actual role is to act as an advisory and consultative body to the provost, the president, and the board of trustees on matters relating to the university's educational and research objectives. Nowhere in that do I see students whatsoever. So I think students should be at the focus of the faculty senate as well as the student government is, Okay, I'm done.
Thank you. Other tickets? Any response?
Well, Lucas stole my point on the faculty senate there, so darn. That was going to be part of what I spoke about is also with the VPAA, finding more ways to interact with the faculty. And I think one of those other things that we can work with is the SFA, the Student Faculty Alliance, which is currently under the VPAA. Again, Hannah, you do absolutely amazing work. But I feel like there is also room for improvement. There is room to sort of gear up the Senate, get them more involved in what it is that the VPAA does.
Sorry, Hannah, I'm also going to talk about you. So my comment was also with the VPAA, and again, it is a new position. Something that I talked to Tommy and Kat about right now is that a lot of the committees underneath VPAA are kind of disconnected from a lot of the other committees. Like, for example, for ACA and CAR, which is the other committee overseen by VPAA, we all keep our own logs and files and minutes somewhere else, whereas the rest of the Senate and their committees keep all of their minutes in one place. So from a VPO perspective, that can be like kind of annoying because Kat has to go and like find all this stuff. So just bringing in the VPAA to the loop a little bit more to make their position like a little bit more consistent with other cabinet members. That being said, Hannah is amazing and sits in like 8,000 meetings each and every week on behalf of all of the students.
All the roles on the cabinet are amazing roles and necessary roles, and they all can be done to be improved and be better. And the way that that's going to work out is by creating an effective team in general and finding the right people for the job. Finding those people who are motivated and who are willing to put the students first in whatever role that they're doing. Because again, we're the Student Government Association here for the students. Everyone is part of the Student Government Association. So it's not just one specific area that needs to be improved. All of SGA can be improved.
Alrighty, thank you.
Hello. Hello. So you all spoke about some really great ideas regarding initiatives and goals. If you were to not be elected, would you continue to work as a senator or otherwise on those goals to try to make Stevens better?
Oh, everyone's gearing up. All right, I gotta switch it up. I'm sorry, Marianne. We're going to go to you.
So right now we actually have a group chat with the 6 of us, and that's we're all like very good friends going into this, and that really is our goal, is to like remain friends and remain involved. And we've all talked like face to face with each other about that, and that really is one of our goals with this election. I mean, for me personally, I know that if I'm not elected, I do want to run for different cabinet positions and hopefully remain on that level. But I mean, we've all told each other that like no matter how it turns out, we're all going to look to support each other in whatever capacity that we can moving forward after the election.
Anyone else? Oh, yes.
Yeah, I 1,000% back up Marianne and what she's saying. We're here because we care, and I don't think we're going to stop caring if we don't win. I joined the student government and realized its potential freshman year, and I don't fault them for joining later. But there is a lot of work that can be done, and I think that whether or not I'm elected, we do have a lot of really cool initiatives that I'd like to see happen, whether it's under me or under anyone else. It's all for the betterment of the student body, so it doesn't really matter.
Stevens, I definitely got to say you have a very, very tough decision to make, because everyone sitting here next to me has fantastic ideas, has the motivation, has the drive to get whatever they have listed done, and so much more. In terms of staying involved, there are so many things personally that I'm working on that still haven't been finished. So that is, I 100% would stay on SGA, still continuing to make the lives of Stevens students better. And also, it's not just so what I want to do, I need to work with everyone on this table and help them get what they want done.
And as I mentioned before, a lot of the initiatives that personally that we have for our own campaign, I would hope that whatever the outcome of the election is, that these initiatives get pulled through, because it doesn't matter who's president, who's vice president, who's on the cabinet. These things are needed for our campus to thrive and for our campus to have a better experience. So it doesn't matter. I'm going to stay involved, whether or not. I just would love to see all of this get pulled through, all these great ideas.
Thank you.
I was wondering what you believe the best way for SGA officials to effectively and accurately gather the opinions and thoughts of the majority of the student body, and then be able to quantify that data. So then, when we say that we are representing the majority of the student body, we have something solid to back up that we are actually representing the majority, and that it's not subjective with whom we talk to.
Melanie?
I think the best way would be, if you want to quantify, like that keyword being in there, to host more open events for students and then take attendance at those events and then really sit down with, like if it's a cabinet event, see how many cabinet members talk to students at that event. Like, you know, we're STEM school, guys. We can play around with numbers. In general, though, everyone just needs to be vocal. This school, that's something that we need to change. We all need to be vocal. We all need to express our ideas, our opinions, our concerns. And that is how we as a leadership group on campus can effectively lead the students and represent them.
As an only child who was raised by a family of small business entrepreneurs that had their background in politics, I firmly believe in the power of face-to-face conversation, and I believe that there is a paucity of SGA senators going out and standing on a street corner, how about 6th and River, and just standing there waiting to speak to people. Because the amount of students of different walks of life, different majors, different everything that walk by there on any given moment is absolutely crazy. And if we just took the time to stand there with a clipboard and a pen and ask people what they thought, put check marks under where it is that they stand, write down things that they believe, I believe that is a firm way, on top of the polls, on top of the canvassing, on top of the events that we already do, building those up as well, but actually getting our faces out there, getting the face of the SGA senators to each and every student that we can, I believe that is a very firm way to get that done.
Something that we're also working on for ACA is working directly with faculty and the involvement that they have in students. So, for example, for the initiative of fixing whatever is happening in recitation, what the math department wants to do is the third week of classes, because if your TA is incompetent, you know by then, having some kind of a face-to-face meeting with all the students or collecting feedback in that way. So leveraging the power of the faculty and the interaction that they have with students is also a very powerful resource that we haven't been utilizing yet, because they do want to work with us, just a matter of establishing that connection and then following through with it.
Lucas.
So one thing that I think is super underutilized that I sort of implemented into the Public Relations Committee, I thought of it at like 3 a.m. because I'm a weirdo and think of SGA at 3 a.m. But the quick response survey is something that I think is super underutilized, and I talk about it a lot because I think it's a pretty cool idea. But basically what it is a question is posed to the student government, and senators have to go out and find at least 2 responses to that specific question. So being able to talk to 2 people, the SGA is very diverse. We have a lot of different spheres of influence. So being able to just talk to 2 people about that specific question is really not that hard. And if we have 40 senators, that's 80 responses on a survey. Making that mandatory and utilizing that actual method of communication, having the conversation starting with the senators and getting it out to the student body, I think is super important, something that's underutilized, and I think we could definitely do more with that whole idea.
Hi everyone, how y'all doing? That's not my question, but this debate has mainly been about like your policies and everything, and I just kind of want to see more of like your individual personalities. So my question is, if Stevens Institute of Technology were a salad, what part of the salad would you guys be?
Oh, snap! Mariana, we'll go to you.
The avocado.
Nope. No.
Lucas.
I think everyone can agree that no one actually likes the salad part. They like the croutons.
Oh, wow. Melanie and Jose, lots of pressure.
We're obviously the best part, and it all goes on the top. It's the dressing. So honestly, you can't have a salad without having at least a nice dressing.
Y'all
I
got
hope
me
that
hungry
answers your
now.
question.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that very intriguing question. I think we should start off the debate with that next time.
I agree.
I think that would be a good switch it up.
Start off with opening remarks next time.
All right. Thank you. We're gonna move on.
Hey guys, I can't fault any of the work that the SGA does. They do a lot of work, and I've seen a lot of that work done, especially me getting involved and learning about the SGA over the last couple of weeks. But there are some departments that feel that they are underrepresented in the SGA, a bit marginalized as Stevens as a whole, and that a lot of the problems that get tackled, whether I'm not saying that's the fault of the SGA, I think it's just the fact that we are underrepresented. Some departments feel that their problems aren't something that are discussed or that they have somebody to come to, and that so my question is, namely the departments in MPK, the Cal, Music Technology, Art and Technology, and the College of Arts and Letters. So my question is, if any of you have thought of ways to not only bring these departments back into the loop, but also if you've reached out to anybody in these departments to see if any of the problems outside of these core engineering problems, for example, these TA problems, if you have any solutions or thoughts to any of those or how to bring them back into the loop.
Lucas.
So one thing that I've noticed is that the arts community is definitely on its way back. And it's definitely becoming a larger and larger voice at Stevens. I know you're starting Redshift again, right? Which is really cool. It's going to be an arts magazine for the Stevens student body. But one thing that I want to include on the President's Council is SPAG, the Stevens. It's basically an advisory for all of the different arts community on campus. Greg McNeil right over there is heading that up, and I think it's a super underrepresented community in Stevens that I think should and deserves to be on the President's Council. The President's Council, just to give a background, is sort of it's a lot of different governing bodies for the Stevens students, like there's SAC, which is the Athletic Advisory Committee. There is UGC, IFC, and different other governing bodies that promote the ideas and the ideals of different communities on campus. So I think including SPAG on the President's Council and just giving a better voice to the arts community here. One of the things that I said at the beginning was having the visual arts and technology majors art pieces be in more than just one hallway in Morton. I think that's super important. I think we should be able to see the project that Stevens students are putting on. There's some really, really talented people here, and I think that everyone wants to see it. So that's what I do.
And that's fun. Jose?
Okay. I just didn't know who was. Okay. For me, when it comes to the underrepresented departments, I always found it odd, and I know it's a little difficult to well, I don't know if it is a little difficult, but I know if we work on it, we can probably make it happen, that these departments, for one, aren't even offered co-op. And I think that's something that is an issue, and I know that people have talked about it before. It's not that we can't do it. It's probably just an idea that has not been addressed, and that is something that at least we've been thinking about when it comes to underrepresented departments that at least don't have that option. We want to increase that, and also having them represented, having a seat at the table, again, like how Lucas mentioned, at the President's Council, because these groups, of course, are growing, these underrepresented departments, and having a group that's growing and not having a way to communicate with the SGA, not having a way to communicate with people that enact the recommendations that change this campus, that is an issue. And we would like to address that by having that transparency, by having that ability, that connection with these departments through our cabinet.
So I do believe that what Lucas says about the President's Council is very important, and I know that you and I both have had the honor of sitting at that table a couple of nights. Thank you, Tommy. But I do believe that beyond that, there is more that can be done, and I think that one very integral way to get, as you said, the arts or other, really anybody of any walk of life more involved in the SGA is invite them to come to meetings. I know that I've seen your face at a lot of the SGA meetings recently, and I really appreciate that. You've brought some very good points to the table. But I do think that, I mean, to go back to this dead horse that I've been beating, we might have senatorial elections, more senators at the table, and I think one great way to do that would be to encourage people to be senators in the SGA, have their voice heard, and if they aren't elected, then come to the meetings anyway and share what they believe.
So since I am the head of the Academic and Curriculum Advancement Committee, I'm looking at it from that angle. So because the freshmen have come through with their committee rotations, and a lot of them are humanities majors, I've gotten to learn more about these departments and kind of their problems that they need. And one of the biggest problems in that department that we should address that isn't, is that a lot of the humanities majors can't even sign up for the classes that they need to take because the engineers register for all of the humanities before they can even get there. So something that we can look into doing is finding out how to make sure that there are enough classes available for humanities majors to even graduate on time so that they don't have to panic with scheduling, whether that's expanding the Cal department so that those classes are available, or having them register early so that they at least have the opportunity to graduate on time is one way to start looping in that department.
Thank you. The man himself has arrived.
All right, so being SGA president.
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, hi, my name is Thomas Daly. I don't really do anything on campus. I'm super not involved. So being SGA president has certainly been a challenge, but it's probably been the most amazing challenge of my life. What about the position are you most excited about?
Melanie? Saw you go towards the mic first.
I am most excited about getting to know people. I love meeting new people, and I want to know more people on this campus and understand what issues they're having and how I can help them. I have been an orientation leader, a peer mentor, a tutor. I am all about getting people the help that they need. And that's what really excites me about this position, being able to have relationships and connections with people who can actually enact change and listen to what the students want. All of that interwebbing is super important, and that's what I want to do as president.
So what Luke's and I are most excited about is making a lasting difference. Wait, sorry, did he? I can go? Okay, cool.
No, that's fine.
My bad. All right, so we're excited about making a lasting difference. Like we said earlier, we want students to feel connected with their alma mater after they graduate. And this is already on our calendars. We want to come back to Stevens when we're like 80 years old and see like, hey, did we make a lasting difference? And we're excited to possibly do that, so.
Personally, I'm most excited to speak on behalf of the student body that I've come to know and love. I really have involved myself in a lot of different things on campus to the point where I think pretty much anyone could come up to me and tell me their opinion, and I would be more than willing to share that with the administration. That's what I'm most excited for in the position, that I could be used as a resource. I feel like I'm used as a resource as an RA, which I love my position there. I'm used as a resource when I was rush chair for the Kappa Sigma fraternity. I was used as a resource when I was Greek liaison in Alpha Phi Omega. And being used as a resource for the entire student body is probably the thing that I'd be most honored to do.
What I'm looking forward to most in this position, Mr. Daly, is bringing my past experiences in the various leadership positions I have held and seeing how they can change with the new characteristics that are brought on by the presidency, but also learn from the student body, learn from the beast that is the SGA, and have it reflect back upon me and how I can grow as a leader myself. I think that all of us here realize that we are not fully fledged adults, that we are still in the process of learning. And there is a learning curve for absolutely anyone who steps into any position, but I believe that for myself, this would be a great way to not only lead myself, but also the entire student body into a higher state of being.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So one of my absolute favorite parts of being a leader on campus is getting to be a mentor for younger students. So I'm really looking forward to working with students from all different years to teach them about what kind of a tool the SGA can be for them and how much they can really do in their 4 or 5 years while they're on this campus, because you really can accomplish a lot as a general member of the student body.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I would first like to note that I do attend Faculty Senate meetings, just so you all know. Also, as you have probably seen, the cabinet and SGA as a whole gets a lot of backlash. And also, we get told a lot of criticism all the time, which is fine. We are open to it, obviously. And I was wondering how you guys are going to take that on in your positions.
I saw Mariana, and we'll go to Lucas.
So I think the best way to handle criticism is by working with the people who are criticizing you. If someone is going through that effort to look at what you're doing and criticize it, that means that they care. And if you have a student out there that cares about what's happening in their SGA, that's a tool that you can use and bring them into the loop and figure out, okay, why are you criticizing this? What can we do to make it better? And you have somebody else that you can work with now. You have probably their network too and a whole other team of students that you can use by bringing them into the loop.
So, Hannah, I know you go to Faculty Senate meetings. I hear it in all of your committee reports every week. And if you're part of SGA, you know exactly what I mean. So, dealing with criticism, I feel like I've already had to do it, not gonna lie. If you didn't read an article written about me, there was an article written about me calling me the establishment. And I think there's validity to every single criticism, no matter how big, no matter how small. I think it's something you just take with a grain of salt, and you realize that if someone's criticizing you, there's something that's coming from it, and maybe you don't necessarily agree with it, but there's something that is there's something that's forming their opinions to make them believe that about you. So I hope to grow, become more transparent as a leader, and just be able to take criticism with a grain of salt, knowing that not everyone has the same experiences, but knowing that I'm doing the right thing for the student body. So
unfortunately, you can't have everything you want in life. You can't make everyone happy, but you have the power and the potential to enact change. And that's what this position's all about. If you're being criticized, that's, again, because people care and because maybe you've overlooked what they want. And that is a tool for you, a challenge for you, to reevaluate your thoughts and your outline on how you're working out a situation and make it better.
As we mentioned before, that personal face-to-face interaction is very important. You have somebody that criticizes you and they obviously care. You should take the time out to see why they have that opinion, see what they want to see about what you decided and why they decided on giving you that feedback. I personally believe that all feedback is good feedback, no matter what it is. If it's negative or positive, it's still something that is used, that can be used for you for your own improvement, and in this case, for the improvement of the student experience at Stevens.
Thank you. Did you want to ask a question?
Yes, I have one question, but I'm timing, so I'm going to stay here. RSOs are a huge component of the Student Government Association, and as we are growing as a student government, we're trying to establish more branches of student government, but at our core, RSOs is where student government originated. I just wanted to ask you, what is one struggle you face as a leader of a recognized student organization, and how do you plan to address that struggle to other across like other student organizations, and how do you plan to always remind yourself to remember those student organizations and prioritize them? Just as VPSI, not that I'm biased or anything.
I guess I can answer. So when I am a member of the anime club. I'm still involved with them, and I think the biggest complaint anime club has, someone wooed, I don't know who that was. Okay, but I think a big complaint anime club tends to have is that the SGA doesn't listen, or that we're always just trying to cut their budget. And like Lucas and I talked about earlier, we do want to appoint a vice president of finance who's going to be policy oriented, so we can minimize subjectivity in the budgeting process. So that's something very important to us. We just want RSOs to know that we listen and we care, and we're not taking money away from them just because we can. We just have to, unfortunately. So.
This semester, resurrecting the American Society for Engineering Management, which sort of died out, and sort of having someone who's on SGA makes it really easy to do that. But having someone that is regularly meeting with a new organization, I'm sure you do that already, but regularly meeting with a new organization or even a restarting organization like my own, if it wasn't for me in my organization, no one would know how to do budgets, no one would know how to plan events or anything like that. So recognizing the organizations that are either restarting completely with leadership or starting from the ground up, and having someone there to guide them through the Student Government Association. Another thing that I recognized was that there was a lot of different issues where there was different clubs that didn't fit into their category under subcommittees. So as a senator, I created the Electronics and Gaming Subcommittee. I also created the Religious and Faith-Based Subcommittee. So I think doing different things like that, reorganizing the different recognized student organizations makes it easier for them to survive and thrive.
So, as a former president of an RSO, I feel like I know exactly what it is that is needed more from the SGA. Personally, I had to deal with a lot of issues of not really knowing too much about how to use the resources the SGA gives. I personally had no idea that there were even office hours, or if that wasn't a thing until that was introduced this year. I know some organizations still don't know that. And that's a bit of an issue. It's a bit of an issue of transparency. It's a bit of an issue of the cabinet not being as vocal or not focusing, I guess, as much on the RSOs. And at least for me, at least for us, that's something that will not be lost. I personally do believe that I will maintain my involvement in the organizations that I am involved with, maybe at a different level. But obviously, when it comes to things like having RSOs that are starting, having RSOs that have had successful track records, having RSOs that have not had successful track records, it all goes back to what resources the SGA can provide them and making sure that they have those resources. A leadership summit is unfortunately not the only way that we can do it, and it's also not the only way that we should do it. There should be more initiatives that we can connect the SGA, the cabinet, the senators to the student organizations, and that will not only benefit the organizations themselves, but again, everybody who is involved with those organizations, the experiences that we all have, and the events that we have that are so amazing on this campus.
Sundus, if you would be so kind, the cogs have been whirring a bit too long in here. Could you repeat your question for me?
I was saying, I guess talk on one RSO struggle you faced as part of an RSO in your time at Stevens, and how will you use that experience as president or as vice president to continue increasing and benefiting RSOs?
Okay. I know you asked for one. I'm going to give you two because I'm an overachiever like that. As the president of Torch, I have been able to, well, actually, before I became president of Torch, I was able to see where Torch was and its arguable lack of validation in some aspects at this school. But through my presidencies and through all of the great things that my e-boards have been able to accomplish over the past couple of years, I believe firmly that all organizations, no matter how valid, invalid, and what state of being they are at the moment, deserve the chance to be heard, deserve the chance to state their claim and have their budgets and have their everything understood. And so through my experience with that, I feel that it has been I've learned a lot from it on how the SGA works in relation to RSOs and how to have those RSOs feel validated by the Stevens body. But also in my tenure on the e-board for the Society of Women Engineers. One of the more recent issues that has transpired was with the Constitution. And I believe firmly that it is one thing that, while it is still yet to be resolved, is one thing that desperately needs to be resolved. And I now firsthand have experience with why it is extremely important to have an organization which not only abides by, but has a very up-to-date and very conclusive constitution. And as president of the student body, thank you. As president of the student body, I feel that I would do my utmost to ensure that every RSO on this campus is doing their due diligence to make sure that they abide by their own laws.
All righty. So I don't think I see any more questions. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. Or find them later. Absolutely. All right. So with that, folks, let's give them a round of applause. I want to thank whoever has stayed here for the almost 2.5 hours to hear our tickets all speak about what they plan to do if elected. Thank you. It has been such a pleasure moderating with Parker, and I will just let him finish up with the voting details.
All right, one final announcement. If you go to www.stevens.edu/vote, that is where the voting portal will be. You will have until next Wednesday, November 8th at 9 p.m. to vote. You can vote for one ticket only. So please make sure that you go and do that before the voting period has closed. All right.
With that, you
Thank
are
you.
all set. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.